Hey, book lovers. My name is Em, and I want to talk about books. And cats. Hey, book lovers. So I have an extra special episode for you this week. If you listened to last week's episode, you already know that this is going to be an interview episode. I had the privilege of chatting with poet and podcast host Erin Culff, who you might remember from episode 3 of this season, where I discussed her book of poetry and also her podcast about mythical monsters. We had a lovely chat, and honestly, I wish we could have talked longer. Zoom kind of limits your time unless you pay extra, and I've never needed to before, but I guess I need to upgrade. Anyway, Erin is just fascinating, and I know you're all going to enjoy this one. So without further ado, here is my interview with Erin Culff. Hello.
Hello, Em. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm so well, thank you. How is everything? Are you in the studio?
Yes. This is the first thing I've recorded in the studio. I'm so excited.
I'm so blessed. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm so excited.
Me too. I will say that my cats are in and out of this room like Zoomy boys. So
Okay.
just as a preamble, if you see Scully and Rip just running out of nowhere, they are.
Oh,
they
that's
will make
perfect.
noise.
Yeah, that's perfect for the podcast, right?
It's very perfectly hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so excited to talk to you. I guess I want to start by talking about your podcast because that's how I found you. So it's the Myth Monsters podcast. How did that come about?
You know what? So I'm a old creative, and I'm very much like I was very into the theatre and always been a writer and stuff like that. And during the lockdowns, and it was bad everywhere, but
Yeah.
I lived on my own, and it was just like, yeah, and I just had no creative outlet. I worked for a really boring tech company who I won't name, but really like dead end. And I was like, I just feel so creatively drained and I can't go out and do something. So I ended up, and this was like I want to say like January, February 2021.
Okay.
I was like, we were still in a lockdown in the UK, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try and find something that kind of itches that nerve. And I ended up doing the book and then thinking, oh, that's going to last forever. And it just didn't.
Yeah.
It was so short-lived. I was like, how long can I talk to my friends and family about this?
Right. And once you do one, it snowballs. It just keeps going.
Exactly. And you must know as well, like, and that's it. You can only talk about one book for so long before trying to plug something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that kind of finished, I suppose, and it did fine and all that. And I was like, well, that wasn't this didn't go as well as I expected.
Right.
And I still wanted to write, and I did a master's in playwriting and wanted to get back into the whole writing
that's so cool
thing.
Yeah.
I wish it was as cool as it sounds. It's so not. I look back on it and I'm like, that's so lame.
Well, I mean, I was a theater major in college, so I think it's cool.
Hashtag same. Yeah, and I was like, I want to do that like continuous writing thing, but like I don't know, I can't write plays like on the quick, and I can't write books and just pump them out. It's just not something I can do. So I was like, what's really popular right now? Everyone seems to be doing a podcast. And I was like, this could work. And I love the McElroy brothers who do My Brother and Me.
Oh, yep.
Because they're just ridiculous. Yeah. And I was listening to that on the regular, and I was like, I really love the show, but it's so long. Mm-hmm. And they ended up writing a book on podcasting. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy this book because I like them. Yeah. And I'm going to see how this goes. And I just went for it. And here we are 2 years later.
That's awesome.
Still going.
That's really what it's all about too, is just plugging away.
Yeah. And it truly is. Like, especially with, I think, I'm very much I will write the whole thing and then I'll just read it back. That kind of research and like having to like sit down and commit to writing something that's like It's like 3,000 words equates to about 15 minutes, which doesn't feel very much, but like that's an essay I would do at uni, and I'm doing that once a week, you know, like
that's a lot of work.
and I think like it's very much like I've got a couple of friends who have gone into podcasting and they've been like, oh, we just talk, you know, we talk amongst each other, and I'm like, I wish I could do
must be nice.
Right, like I wish I didn't have to stick to this like very rigid format in order to make sense of what I'm trying to say about these mythical animals.
You do pack a lot of information into such a short episode. Like I find them really fascinating.
Oh, thank you. I truly have honed in on it now. I think I look back at my older episodes and I'm like, this was a bit all over the place, but I forgive 26-year-old Erin. She's doing okay.
It's all a process.
You know, I'm proud of her. So now I've got a very strict like structure that I stick to. And a lot of the time I find I either go like vastly under the 15 minutes that I'm going for, or I get massively over, and then I'm like, oh, I think I must have to turn this into a special because I've screwed this.
A two-parter.
I've screwed the timing. And this is my USP.
I think I have a hard time with the timelines because I've found that they can go anywhere from like 15 to 45 minutes, and I just kind of put them out because I just, you know, it is what it is.
It's the best way to go. It really is.
Sometimes I've got more to say about a book than other times, I guess.
I could talk forever about Twilight, to be fair.
Oh yeah.
So much about not so much about Medea.
Right.
There's not much else to say.
You know, I had to study Medea and I can't tell you much about her.
You know what, hun? Neither could I. I love her. She's a great character. I remember the last like 25 minutes where she spoiler, 1,000-year-old spoiler, but she kills the kids and she ascends on that beautiful chariot. Moment. I've even played Medea and I'm like, I don't think I can remember what happens before.
I know, I only remember the kids.
And the worst part of it that's like, oh, you know, she's a really bad person, but I'm like, there's definitely some redeeming quality in there though.
She's got some point. I love that you do mythology. I don't know if that's like common for book people, but I tend to find that people are really into mythology as well if they're into books. Do you have like a particular favorite type, or do you have like a top 3 like favorite types of mythology, like
location-y wise?
Yeah, like Nordic or whatever.
100%. I mean, Greeks by far are my favorite. I'm a Hellenic pagan as well, so it kind of roots into kind of everything in my life. So it's quite nice to be able to put everything that I've learned in that side of my life into this side.
That's very cool.
And I think like the being able to read across monsters from that context is quite interesting as well. But because all of them have like, you know, they all have meanings differently, and it's how they interpreted the world and animals they've not seen before and stuff like that. So I'm big into the Greeks, and I mean Roman is practically identical as well with that kind of stuff.
It's pretty much the same.
I mean you just kind of bundle them into the same thing, and they're like, this will do. I love the Norse as well. I love Scandinavia in every shape, way and form. Like I was lucky enough to work for a Danish company for quite a long time.
Oh, very cool.
And I got to go out to Copenhagen loads. I have loads of Danish friends, and it's so nice to be able to be like, oh, I just love this. I love this.
That's awesome.
And their culture is amazing. Like I can't, you know, England's fine, but the Danes have it right. But I also I have a real interest in native mythology, because we, you know, being over here, there's just no we don't have that kind of thing. It's very much like everyone who is here is very much like native English, which I said listeners with bunny ear things going. I love that idea of that culture as well. It's really fascinating. But I also, in the same vein, love the Japanese mythology and yokai and you're right, are just so cool. And they have a monster for everything. That's the umbrella monster. What more could you want?
Your monsters tend to be like pretty intense too. Like they have some of the scariest monsters, I think.
Yeah. I mean that there's one that I really like, the Kuchisake Ono it's called, and it's the lady with, and this is so like COVID inspired. Well, it's not, it's so much older than this, but it's like, oh, this is so terrible of modern times. But it's like a lady who she takes her face mask off and she's got this big Chelsea smile kind of thing going on. And she like asks you to tell her if she's beautiful, and if you tell her yes, she kills you, and if you tell her no, she kills you.
So you can't win.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
It's like pure creepypasta, and like chain emails from my childhood really remind me of that.
Yep.
And like, don't get me wrong, they scared me silly, but like that kind of stuff is
I love that stuff.
Num 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 num.
Yeah. I love a good scary story in any form.
Me too.
So I guess kind of jumping off from the scary monsters, do you have favorite monsters as far as like, could you pick a favorite like good monster, kind of a neutral one, and then maybe like a more chaotic or evil one, I guess?
That's a great question.
I know there's a million to choose from.
Too many. You know what? Neutrals are so hard because
I bet.
Like they're just either like really bad or they're really all right.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh gosh. You know what? Actually, I'm going to say for neutral, I'm going to say the umbrella term of dragon.
Okay.
Like I'm talking like European medieval kind of dragons.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're pretty chill in reality.
Yeah.
I think people just went and poked them with sticks, and I
I
think I would be.
Things.
Yeah, I think I'd be quite upset too.
Yeah.
So and like everyone loves dragons. They're just like, we see that in the success of something like Game of Thrones. Like, all of those kind of things are just like I just love them. They're so cool.
They're so cool. Yeah.
And like my uncle, we used to tease him when I was a kid because he has this massive dragon tattooed down the back of his back. Funnily enough. And my grandparents were like, it just doesn't mean anything, does it? And I was like, it's so cool though.
Yeah, who cares?
I think good is really hard actually, now I really think about it. But I think for bad, I think I've probably got to go with something like a succubus.
Oh, okay.
I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
Like the concept of, and like I suppose in their eyes they're not evil,
right? Yeah,
but they are demons. So, but I like that concept of like trying to steal something from another race sexually and use that to imbue your own race sexually. It's they're so weird, but again, a really cool one. And I think that I'm trying to think of, they must be maliciously evil if they're doing that, right? And like the male versions are pretty rapey and all that stuff. So it's very much like, okay. And then good, Phoenix.
Oh, okay. I love the Phoenix.
Nothing bad about the Phoenix. Like they're just so nice. And another thing that I really love about the Phoenix is that there's another copy of it from the same time in Chinese mythology, and they have literally zero contact with each other, the Grecians and the Chinese. And they created an almost identical monster. It's so odd. So the Chinese version is called the Fen Huang, and it's this red bird of rebirth, and it bursts into flames and comes from the ashes.
Wow.
From almost the same time the Greeks were doing it, which I just think is just amazing.
Yeah, there's something like mystical about that. Like,
right? Don't you think?
That's wild. I love that.
Yeah. And like, look at it in Harry Potter, and like Fawkes in that is like, he like cries his little and you have that moment with this probably like styrofoam bird that they made back in 2001. And I was like, no, I really love this bird.
The Phoenix was one that was one of the earliest like mythology creatures that I really like kind of clung on to, you know. I think they're amazing, and I love the idea of rebirth. Like I have found in life that's kind of just a repeating, like you're always just kind of being reborn, as you go through the stages of life. So
absolutely
I
agree.
love the Phoenix.
What about yours? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, geez. Great. I don't know about good, so I'm going to agree with you on the Phoenix, because once you said that, I was like, oh, that's perfect. I don't know about neutral. I don't know much about, it seems to me like mermaids might be neutral, but then I was listening to one of your episodes where there are different mermaids or types. I don't know.
There are so many, yeah. But mermaids is again, like as a nice umbrella term. We can kind of think of Ariel and be like, this is nice.
Oh, she's nice.
Yeah, she's very pretty. Look at her hair.
Unless you read like the real version of that story.
I mean, that's it. It's a perfect two-sided coin with those. I think they're a good neutral. I think that's a very good choice.
Okay. And then let's see, evil or chaotic, I guess. I don't know. They're all so fun. I was really interested. I just listened to your episode recently about the djinn, like the genies.
Oh, yeah.
And they seemed like surprisingly a little more dark than I had pictured them.
Yeah, they're definitely not Robin Williams happy-go-lucky blue. No, absolutely.
You can't base everything off of Disney. Come on.
I wish you could, though. Imagine. I'd love to have like a little blue guy being like, go on.
Yeah, you can do it. I need that someday.
Same.
But yeah, I guess I'll go with that because there's so many and my brain's just seizing.
I think they're all excellent choices. I back them 100%.
So let's talk briefly about your book that you mentioned earlier, your poetry collection, which I did talk about in a previous episode of the podcast.
You did, and so kindly. It's
I
so
loved it.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
I'm very interested in just people's stories in general, and I found like there was a lot of varying but very relatable stories in the poems.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy poetry, but I don't always feel like I'm getting like the intention out of it. And I felt like I was very clearly getting the intention and the stories behind yours.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was great.
Oh, thank you so much.
So what was the inspiration other than just like COVID boredom? Like, how did you kind of get the idea to do this type of poetry?
You know what? I was writing that book for probably 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And just whenever I do say in the blurb, it's like, a collection of stories, but I'll be honest, most of them are me.
Yeah.
And so every time I would kind of have an experience or like I would have like a fallout with someone,
right,
I find the easiest thing, and like you might feel the same as well, is like just getting it out.
Yeah.
And my type of poetry, and like the argument I've had with so many people is like, oh, is it really poetry? Or is it just you kind of talking in prose? It's like anything can be poetry. It doesn't need to rhyme.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It doesn't have to have a set
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But and I think that was just writing it down and putting it in that kind of prose really helped me kind of move on from that, but also be able to really get out how I was feeling. And I started writing it originally when I was with my like long-term partner, who I'm no longer with, and I would get so frustrated with him. He was a bassist, and so the house was always loud. And
I'm married to a bassist.
Yeah, it was just chaotic, guitars everywhere, and we had the cats who were kittens, and I was like, I was working at a county court, so it was just like I was just in my head all the time, and I found it so cathartic to go when he was in the shower and just write a really angry poem.
I love it.
And just put down everything that annoyed me that day, like at 11 a.m. you slammed the door and I hated you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and just it fully evolved from that. And then I realized I could actually write that about probably everyone I'd ever had any kind of experience with, and just went for it. And it was only in lockdown that I really had time to be able to kind of put everything down and kind of order it out and figure out some kind of pattern to it, because some of them are like not about anyone in particular. They're very much just a shared experience or just a feeling of like going through that, because they are obviously all romance and stuff about relationships. So some of them I can kind of pinpoint people and be like, this was a whole thing. And actually when I published it, and I hope to goodness they're not listening to this, because this would be even more awkward. They messaged me and was like, hey, I bought your book and I want to talk about Namesake Doppelganger, and because I think it's about me. And I was like, and she, bless her, she was just like, look, you know, I really liked our time together. And I was like, so did I, please do.
Just a moment.
So awkward, but you know, very nice feedback. It was very nice to hear, and actually we both got some closure out of that, which was quite nice. So,
that's nice.
And
it's always good when that happens.
Yeah, and she's married and happy now, so sending all the love to her, bless her heart. Oh dear.
I think that really does show like just how honestly you're writing, though. If you're getting that sort of like, I guess if you're causing discomfort, then you're being honest, you know, like in your work.
Yeah. It was very visceral. And I'm really picking up on when I was writing these, it was like really early COVID. So I'd just gotten together with my current partner. So all of this was still quite fresh. From the breakup from my long-term ex, in between that to where I am now. And so they're all really fresh, and I was writing them as they happened. So it was literally like, we've fallen out.
Here's all my emotions.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I love it. So you also said that you write plays, which I'm very interested in. I have written a bunch of plays, but they were all for middle and high school students because I was a theater teacher for a long time. And we had no budget, so I would just write them a play.
Oh yeah.
But so what kind of plays have you written or are interested in?
I love in your face theatre. So really quite aggressive theatre from the British 90s. New Labour had just come in. It was just a really bad time to be over here and especially be creative. And of course, I only turned up halfway through the 90s, so didn't live it myself.
Lucky you.
Hey, I missed Nirvana, and I really feel like that was
a moment. Yeah.
But you know, it was a rough time, and especially in British history, and a lot of writers here really picked up this amazing movement. So when I went to college, studied a playwright called Sarah Kane. And she is just she's no longer with us, unfortunately. She took her own life back in the noughties, I think. And she wrote just pure emotion, and her plays have no characters a lot of the time. It's very like words all over the page. Like, it's her play 448 Psychosis, which was the last play she ever wrote. There are no characters. And it's just all over the place. There's a whole 2-page monologue about sucking someone's mother's eyes out, putting them in a box. And you know, they're very violent, stereotypically really taboo, and so they never get put on. So when they're on here, everyone who's into it goes. And she did a play called Cleansed, and that was on at the National Theatre, which is one of our, you know, absolute honing theatre places here. And it sold out almost every night, but it had just, the reviews were crazy, and it was people were fainting and people were being sick, and I went to see it, studying it all at the time as well. And like, this was on whilst I was at uni doing my second year.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, this isn't actually her worst play. This is actually quite tame.
That's funny.
So it's you know, I love that kind of stuff. So I love Sarah Kane, Mark Ravenhill, Anthony Nilsson, like these big players in the in your face game over here. I love Jez Butterworth as well. But yeah, I try and write like that, but I find I haven't written a play for a really long time. And getting deep. But when I did my master's in playwriting, and I did that at Goldsmiths in the city of London, and I did a 2-year course, so I had 2 sets of different students each year that I had to like bond with and get to know. And basically I did a whole dramaturgy year that I didn't want to do in my first year.
Fun.
So I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I was so stupid. I don't know why I did this, but I decided to live in Brighton on the south coast and then commute into London every time. Okay. And I had no money. I worked at like a retail place. I was like, I don't know how I'm doing this. I'm so stressed.
Yeah.
And then my second year, I started working at the county court and was like having to do massive court cases and being like, oh my God. And we had to do a whole load of plays for that, basically. And I did, for my final performance that was put on at the Soho, which is quite a new writers' theatre.
Yeah.
Amazing opportunity. It was actually the only reason I took the course, because I knew I could get credit.
Oh, that's cool.
It was, to be fair. And I look at the Soho now and I'm like,
yeah.
But I wrote this play about a serial killer who was obsessed with puppetry. And he ended up like, it was told from the perspective of his ex-girlfriend who was with him at the time, like looking back on it.
Yeah.
And he basically ended up turning all of his victims into this giant puppet in the basement.
I love that.
And I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
Like I could see it, like, and I did this whole montage scene to Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Awesome.
And like what it did, honestly, it's like my favorite thing I've ever done in plays. I did this whole scene where she's like getting ready in another room and he's like pulling apart these puppets that I made. And I made everything because I was like, I need to visualize it.
Yeah.
Out of little like almost like voodoo dolls, but they're like squishy, like teddies, but like people.
Yeah.
But I stitched milk cartons, like tiny milk cartons, onto their heads and filled them with fake blood. And there was a whole montage scene about him just like tearing off these heads and like spilling this everywhere and like to the tune of Don't Stop Me Now.
Oh my God. And I can picture that. That's so cool.
It was so fun. But my lecturer was, I don't want her to ever find this, but she was very into like women's issues. We had a very big class. We didn't have any men. We literally were a class full of women. It was amazing. We were all from different places. I think I was the only Brit in British.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So it was really cool. And she was just really not fond of what I wrote and was like, I feel everything, I understand you've done all this research and like I love true crime, so I was very much into that. But she was like, I just feel like this topic is really misogynistic. And I was like, unfortunately, 97% of serial killers are men. I'm talking about this from a female perspective, living with a monster. And I just feel like she completely missed the point. But
just got hung up on something.
It was the feedback that came back was really personal and like really horrible. And this was like official uni comeback as well. It was really bad, and it was like this is immature and unoriginal. You write to an A-level standard, which is our college standard. And it's extremely misogynistic and misplaced. And I was like, what? You've put this in graded writing. This is bad. And so I appealed it and was like, this is a personal attack. None of this is constructive. And she took back the feedback. However, they did not change my mark. And I still passed. I passed my master's, but it meant that I couldn't go on and do my PhD, which I really wanted to do. Because I want
terrible.
And she was very aware of that. And I told her my aspirations. I was like, I want to be a lecturer, and I can't do that without being a doctorate. And and since then it left like a really horrible taste in my mouth. Like I've never been able to revisit that play. I've never looked at it. I just can't.
That's too bad because it sounds amazing.
You know what? It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Like I can sit here and be like, something I wrote in like 2014 was a bit rough. Sure. But I read that back and I'm like, this is a travesty. I really do feel like it wasn't bad. But I did get to write a load of other plays alongside that, which was really good. I wrote one about a filing cabinet we had in the courthouse because it was called the Dead Run and everyone was really scared of it. And so I did a verbatim piece from all of these like really old court workers telling me about this place, being like, oh, it's haunted. And it was revealed at the end that it's a bloody filing cabinet.
That's awesome. I love that.
And I did a rewrite of Anastasia, the Fox film from the 90s, which, a great source material, and talked about the actual assassination of the Tsar and all that kind of stuff. So
awesome.
I love that really gritty stuff. That can be controversial, don't get me wrong, but I think you can view these kind of things, especially like as theatre goers and as of critics realistically, and be able to go, okay, well, the writer isn't being an asshole here. They're just observing. And I think that's so important. And, what's taught consistently throughout schools and all of that with theatre is that you're meant to reflect the audience back on themselves. Right. Which is like theatre 101. And I'm very into that. That is long answer to that question.
Oh, that's okay. That was great. I have to say, like, if you are reflecting things back, you're going to get people's like personal reactions.
Yeah.
So, that was definitely more about her than your play.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So frustrating.
I wonder what she's doing now. Oh dear.
So I am almost out of time for this, but this has been fantastic. I guess last question. Do you have a book that was like influential in some major way in your life?
Oh gosh. You know what? I do, but I don't know who it's written by. Okay. It was just called, my parents had it. It was called The Greek Myths, and it was like, I think it was 3 volumes. I have no idea who it was written by, but they were such beautiful books. And my parents brought me up reading, Hesiod and all of that kind of stuff. And they read me myths to go to bed, and like obviously childified, right? Yeah. And I loved Disney's Hercules growing up and all of that kind of stuff. So those books, they used to read them to me to send me off as a 9 post 9. Yeah. And they had the most beautiful illustrations in, and they were proper classic books though. Like, I remember my dad being like, I can't finish this one, it's just so complicated. And then him being like, this compares to like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I had like an amazing copy of The Hobbit as well, which I look back on and as like I remember sitting in A&E in like 2004. I'd fallen off my bike, and my mum to A&E, where there's like a 6-hour wait. She brought the entire Hobbit, and we read the entire thing together in this waiting room.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, and it's just one of those like sweet memories. And actually, you know what? Terrible, but I moved with that book last April, and it turned out I put it in the same box as a giant cylinder of oil.
Oh no.
And it was destroyed, and I'm still upset about it.
Yeah.
And I haven't told my parents, so Mum, if you're listening, I'm really sorry.
Oh no.
I did ruin it, and I will find something else.
What a way to find out.
Oh, I know. I'm going to be like, Mum, look, I did this guest spot. By the way, sorry. Oh, dear. So, but they're the 2.
That's awesome. I would love to see the Greek one, especially. I love like...
I'll have to find it.
Those big collections with the illustrations. I used to love those.
They were proper hardbacks as well. Like they came like the proper like covers, and then they'd have the like full on black hard book underneath, and they were so satisfying, and they were really slim. Like they were like thin books.
Oh, nice.
But I'll have to find them and send you a picture. And
I would love to see them. Yeah,
I'll see if I can figure out who the author is. I have no idea.
All right. Well, this has been great. I really enjoyed talking to you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every second.
We'll have to do this again sometime. This was fun.
I'm so up for that. Please, that would be lovely.
Great. Do you want to plug anything? Tell people where to find you, all your good stuff?
Just for Myth Monsters, you can find us on Good Pods and all of your streaming services as usual. You can also find all the details on mythmonsters.co.uk, and I'm most active on Twitter, which is Mythmonsters Pod, and Instagram, which is Mythmonsters Podcast. But yeah,
great.
Come join the fun.
Yeah, it's a fantastic show. I'm still binging and trying to catch up on everything.
Yeah, you are truly a trooper for doing. I have so many. I've tried to listen back after like leaving it for ages and been like, oh my god, there are so many.
Yeah.
And I've put so many specials in sometimes. I'm like, oh god, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I love the specials though. I loved the leprechaun one for St. Patrick's Day. Yes. That was so great.
Well, I'll give you a secret and your listeners a little secret.
Yeah.
It's my 100th episode in 2 weeks' time. Which is
wow. Congratulations. Amazing. That's amazing.
And I'm doing a special for that, and I am doing the monsters of Heracles, and I'm going to do all the labors and all the monsters that go with it, because I'm very, very against covering heroes, but I'm happy to cover the monsters that are involved in their exploits.
Oh, I'm excited for that one. That's awesome.
A little teaser end.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, honestly.
And that is the end of this extra special episode. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Erin. She is just lovely, and like I said, I could have chatted for a lot longer. Plus, I just listened to her episode on unicorns and found out that she's a big fan of Stardust, which is one of my top 2 favorite Neil Gaiman books. So I think we're definitely going to have to talk to Erin again. Thanks so much for listening, book lovers. I greatly appreciate all of your support. And, tell your friends. They might like some Books and Cats chat too. Take care of yourselves. Have a beautiful week. And until next time, keep reading.
A Frap Media production.